Hello friends, and welcome to the next lecture which we are going to talk about on the Scrum product backlogs. Let's begin. In Agile development, a product backlog is an ordered list of deliverables such as new features that should be implemented as a part of the project or a product development. It is a decision making artifact that helps you estimate, refine, and order everything you might sometime in future want to complete. It helps to ensure the team is working on the most important and valuable features, fixing the important bugs, or doing other important work critical to product development. The backlog therefore is a tremendous useful in situation when you are unable to do everything being asked, or in the context when everything is small amount of planning with help of lots. Think of a product backlog as a wish list, not as a list to do. Product backlog basically contains the order list of tasks, features, or items to be completed as a part of a large product roadmap. Within an effective product backlog, you can assign developers daily, weekly, or monthly tasks that target your end goal and help you build a better product. Product backlog is created keeping in mind the product roadmap. A roadmap is a high level overview of your project, deliverables, key milestones, and overall project goal. The product backlog is a container for work you think you will do in the future to keep your product competitive. It is output of the product owner in collaboration with the stakeholders that includes customers, the team, the analyst. It will change frequently with item being added to or taken out on a regular basis. It will be a larger than the sprint backlog. Generally, it will also have an item with a mix of granularity level with few items broken down below the user story level. It oversees by the product owner. It's very important that your backlog item should be ordered. See, in this figure you can see a backlog item after grooming and refining should have the item's description here like a story, or it can be an epic, it can be an initiative with the size or estimation. The product backlog items can contain, as I mentioned, features, defects, technical work, knowledge equation, and then it can be further broken down into user stories, user cases, and so on. Okay, it's very important for a product owner to ensure that his backlog is prioritized. So one of the most important or a common method to prioritize the product backlog is the Moscow method, which talks about must have, should have, could have, and won't have. So Moscow method, also known as Moscow prioritization or Moscow analysis, is a prioritization technique to reach a common understanding with stakeholders on the importance they place on the delivery of each requirement. Must have all have the features that, if missing, would require cancellation of the product release. Not delivering these features would degrade the product to the point of making it undesirable, unsafe, or illegal. Should have important features that are not vital to the product release. Omitting them will not affect the product minimum viability. Could have features want to wanted or desired by the customer but that are less important than should have features. Finally, won't have features that will not be delivered in the current release. They may be released later if needed. Every product backlog should have a product backlog item, which are generally either epics or the user stories. In this slide, I am trying to explain you the different hierarchical structure of your product backlog items. You have a theme on the top that is basically a label for the organization goal, followed by an initiative which is a group of epics. You can see here it is an initiative which has a group of epics. And epics is a high level story that can be broken down into user stories and further break down into different tasks and subtasks. So this is the summarization of the different definitions so that we are not getting confused over the terminologies. In Agile, an epic is simply a collection of user stories. These stories are related to one another and combined to form one large story. Epic can work across different teams and projects, but they will be under united a broad banner label known as themes, as I mentioned. An epic needs to be broken down to create a meaningful stories, and each story should fulfill a criteria like invest, which will we talk about in the upcoming slide. User stories are one of the core elements of the agile methodology. User story is a very small, actually the smallest piece of the work that represents some value at the end user and can be delivered during a sprint. Great user stories will always fit with the criteria of invest. The user stories are written in a format like as an type of user, I want this particular action so that it provides a benefit. For example, as a passenger, I want to link the credit card to my profile so that I can pay for a ride fast, easy, without cash. So this is one of the ways how a user story is being written with respect to this particular format. Let's talk about the grooming and refinement sessions. One of the most important things that we need to ensure that our product backlogs are updated, properly groomed. They have all the information that is required by our developers for taking them or moving them from the product backlog items or from product backlog to sprint backlog. So in that case, grooming is very important. So grooming is done as a product backlog item. That means it should done at the story level. So it should have the characteristics of a deep. That means it should have a detailed approach. It should be estimated. It should be emerged, and it can be prioritized. If you have a user story that cannot be prioritized, it's of no use. If you have user story that cannot be emerged, it's of no use. Similarly, it's very important for you to have an estimate. So it's very important to have a grooming session continuously over a period of time, and it generally takes 10% of a time of your entire sprint. But yes, it's not be restricted even if you are going ahead of the time for grooming sessions. So for grooming session, it's a product owner and the development team, those who are interacting, collaborating regularly to have grooming their product backlog items or sprint. Refinement is the product backlog must always contain some stories that are ready for implementation without significant risk or surprises. Okay, so backlog refining looks at upcoming stories and features as appropriate to discuss estimation and establishing an initial understanding of acceptance criteria. Every backlog item should follow and criteria of invest. It's independent, it should be negotiable, it should be valuable, it should be estimatable, it should be small, and we should be in a position to test it. So invest is an acronym which emphasizes the following concept which makes up a story a good story. That means it's an independent, it should be independent, should not be depending on another user story. It should be negotiable. We should be in a position to handle it properly. It should be a valuable. The end result should be valuable to the end customer. We should be in a position to estimate it. It should be small. It should not be too long. And finally, it should be testable. So it's very important to have the grooming and refining session. Okay. Then finally, we'll talk about the definition of ready and definition of done. Definition of done is an agreement between a developer and the product owner. This document or checklist is made public so that everyone is clear what is included and what is not. This is very important for everyone to understand what is done. And definition of ready is a checklist, or a definition of ready describes the requirement that must be met in order for a story to move from the backlog to the development phase. It keeping with the agile traditions, ready is often defined as a story that can be acted and immediate. A good definition of ready consists of invest matrix account to a defining a user story. I hope this session was valuable and you were able to understand what is the product backlog and what is the difference between definition of ready and definition of done. Let's meet on to the next lecture where we'll talk about more on the Agile and Scrum framework.